The views expressed are not necessarily those of KSCJ and Powell Broadcasting Company. This program is not intended to replace the advice of doctors or other clinical providers. Consult with your practitioner to ensure the proper course of action for you.
Welcome to When Things Aren't Going Well on AM 1360, FM 94.9 KSCJ. This program is dedicated to your mental health wellness and brought to you by Family Services, a United Way partner agency. Here's your host, Art Silva.
Good morning, and welcome to When Things Aren't Going Well. This show is all about your mental wellness and how you can help yourself navigate the daily highway of life. Our show is brought to you by Family Services. Family Services is a United Way partner agency serving the Siouxland community. Joining me today from Family Services are Chief Operating Officer Brenda Geisinger and licensed therapist Christy Spicer. Good morning, Christy and Brenda.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Good.
It's
Good.
a beautiful
It's early in the
day.
morning, I know. It's 7 o'clock's pretty early, I know, so
Yeah.
This is all good. Hey, listen, today we're going to talk about, our topic today is communication. And we just got off to a great start. So let's define our topic. What's the scope of communication? Let's talk about it.
So when I think about communication, it's anytime we are giving information from one person to the other, right? So really broad kind of a thing. So we do that through different ways. We use our words, right? So we can really articulate and explain something verbally. But we also communicate a lot through body language, facial expressions, all of that stuff. So communication is multiple levels that we do.
Brenda, your idea in this definition?
I think what Christy said is pretty well defined. I think we also have learned how to communicate with our eyes while we're all wearing our masks. And some people are more expressive than others with our eyes, but that's definitely something we've learned to pay attention to and kind of read, what's going on, because we can't see the whole face, but we are constantly expressing thoughts and feelings all the time, whether it's verbal, through our behaviors, actions, our body language, everything.
Well, that's a great point because since we've gone with the masks, I just told a nurse yesterday, I said, your eyes kind of say it all. When you look and now you're focusing more on eyes, and they do tell you a story. They do say something. So that's a good point. Christy, let's get back to where would you like to start with communication? For example, let me ask you, why is it important?
Well, I think, communication is how we connect with other people. And when we connect with other people, it helps our mental health. It helps just every part of us. And so the ability to communicate is just really important for relationships, for our mental health, so many different aspects of our life.
Brenda?
I think communication, it can be very positive and healing and nurturing and fulfilling. And then there's some very toxic communication. And how do you handle that? And being aggressive or assertive or rude, demeaning. And so there's different ways to communicate and learning how to do it appropriately and healthy so you have good interactions and feel good about yourself.
Do you think the way that we have communicated has changed? That way we communicate has changed?
Absolutely. I was just thinking as Brenda was talking about, what is communication, about how much we communicate now in writing and in a different way than we have in previous times. Think about all those text messages you
LOL.
send. LOL. And the conversations that happen just in emojis, right? Is amazing, right? How much people communicate through those images. And so it has definitely changed. I also think the words that people use change over time. Too. Back in the day, everything was cool, right? Now I'm not sure that that's the great word anymore for young people. They moved on to other things sometimes. And so I also have to kind of stay up on the words piece too, because people are using different words.
Well, and last night, my daughter sent me an emoji, and I had no idea what it meant. And I'm like, is she mad at me? Is this a good one? What is this? And it's the willingness to say, what do you mean? Instead of jumping to conclusions or assumptions and just keeping that dialogue going.
So we have now a new form of communication that's come along. I remember going back a ways in language, there was eubonics, and that was pretty much something that grew up in urban areas. And that had a communication all to itself. We've come the full spectrum, and now we're looking at, and some people have been on this for a while, I'm late to the emojis. I'm late to the LOLs. I'm late to all of that but I kind of get it, but it's all new. It's all new. So let me tell you, let me ask you this. What happens when there's not communication?
Conflict. That's the first thing that comes to mind. If we're not communicating well or saying, what do you mean, right? Brenda's example was great. Her daughter sends her that emoji and she's like, I don't know what this means. She could have sat there for days going, I think she's mad at me. And that could have been a real hindrance. And I think anytime we don't understand what someone is saying, it just leads to conflict. Or if people aren't saying things the way that others can understand it, we get hurt feelings and don't feel good about the interaction.
I think the other key piece with communicating is listening. What is this person saying? Am I hearing them correctly and interpreting what they're saying versus in your head saying, well, I'm going to respond with this, or this is my statement. It's really listening and feeling understood and engaging and being present. They always say that's why you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So really paying attention.
That's a very good point, because in my previous life, when I was in the auto business, what was key was your listening skills. How well do you listen to what someone's saying? So that's real important. Christy?
Yeah, and I think the way that you know if you've listened correctly and heard correctly is you can reflect back. So is this what I'm hearing you say? You can also ask clarifying questions. So did you mean this? Or asking some additional questions to make sure you did hear what they intended. And I think that that's a really important part of active listening. It's not just hearing the words or seeing the facial expressions, but asking the questions to clarify.
When you said active listening, that's so true, because Brenda touched on it. When you're saying something to someone, you can see they're already developing their response, and they come out so quickly with their answer that you can see they really didn't have a chance to think about it. This is something that's pretty much been thought about already, and they have an opinion on this. So I think active listening is a real good spot. I'm out Silva, and with me today I'm with my friends from Family Services, Brenda Geisinger and Christy Spicer, and we're talking about communication. Let me ask you this. You said a skill earlier. You mentioned earlier a communication skill. Is that a learned activity? Okay, let me let you address that.
Yeah. So we're not born. I don't believe that we're born knowing how to really perfectly. Sorry about that. Communicate with people, right? So if you think about babies, their only method of communicating with us is to cry, right? And they cry, and they can have different types of cries, and parents who are really in tune with their babies will start to recognize, oh, that's the hungry cry. That's the I just want you to hold me cry, that kind of thing. And so then they develop words, and we teach them the words. We teach them the language. We teach how to show how they're feeling and to speak expressively with our actions and our facial expressions. And so we learn that. We also learn how to be good listeners. We learn how to go, okay, they're talking to me. I need to think, I need to focus on what they're saying, not be constantly working on the what am I going to say next, so that we can listen to the whole thing. Those are all skills we learn. And we can continue to learn them. It's not like, oh, I'm this age, I can no longer learn these skills to communicate more effectively. We can learn them throughout our life.
I think it's also recognizing I am poor at communicating, and what can I do to change? If I'm always responsive with yelling and negative comments, and someone says it's pretty hard to be your friend or be engaged with you, it's taking that pause and saying, wow, I really need to learn how to respond differently. Or some people struggle with talking at all about their feelings and being okay with learning how to do that comfortably.
Oh, boy, there's nothing worse than the silent treatment. You just don't know what's going on, and it's not so you don't know where to take that next step. How do you break through?
Well, I think you can ask questions. I mean, you can do that part of it. I think sometimes too, with communication, we do have to take breaks, and that's okay too. If you're in a discussion or an argument, if you want to call it that, and things are getting to be difficult for you, it's okay to say, I need a minute. I need to collect myself, because at some point in time, sometimes we get in those, communication interactions, and then we're not communicating well anymore because our emotions have gotten too big. And it's okay to say, I need a 10-minute break. I need a 30-minute break, and we can come back and check back in. And that's a really healthy thing to do.
Well, that's a great segue into our break. We're going to take a break right now, and we'll be back to join you here. Our topic today is communication on when things aren't going well. Grab another cup of coffee and join us back here on 1360 KSCJ. Thank you.
Let's face it, that happens to all of us. However, the pandemic has compounded all of our lives and activities. Even the simplest tasks seem harder. Hi, I'm Brenda Geisinger, the Chief Operating Officer at the Boys and Girls Home and Family Services. Family Services is a United Way partner agency serving children and families of our community, and we're here to help. If you'd like to learn more about Family Services, please contact us via email, website, Facebook, or phone Mary Pickens. At Family Services, we change lives.
Welcome back to When Things Aren't Going Well on KSCJ. Here's Art Silva.
Welcome back to When Things Aren't Going Well. I'm Art Silva, and with me today from Family Services, Brenda Geisinger and Christy Spicer. And thank you for being with us. The first half of our show, we're talking about communication, and we're going to follow up with that right now with some other communication ways that necessarily aren't spoken or written. And I'm going to talk specifically about body language. Sometimes the body language, I think, can inhibit communication between two people, or they can misinterpret what's going on. What's your thought on body language as a communication tool?
Yeah, I think you're right, Art, that, sometimes it really is helpful, right? And can help strengthen your understanding of what somebody is trying to communicate, or even as the speaker, that somebody's understanding or listening to you, right? As we're sitting here, you're nodding your head, yes, right? And I'm like, oh, good, I'm speaking good things, right? And I can keep going. If you were sitting there with a scowl on your face, I'd be like, oh, I'm not going in the right direction and need to kind of think about what I'm saying potentially. But sometimes we can have our minds wander, and our body language might not actually be quite reflecting what we're actually thinking about what the person is saying. And so that's where it can maybe be a hindrance, because they might have a reaction to that and then make an adjustment with what they're saying that might not actually help the conversation.
I think, people can sit in a chair with their arms closed, and you think, wow, they're really in a bad spot or not engaging with this or upset about something. I go to a gym every day, and it's very clear, if your eyes are down and your headphones are on, don't ask me any questions and leave me alone. Whereas if you're more open and you have eye contact and you're sitting facing someone, maybe they are engaged with this conversation. People are constantly sending messages on what they're doing with their hands, their arms, their legs, how they're sitting. It's just always there.
I know sometimes if you tie my hands, I can't talk. Some people are just animate in their conversation. I want to talk about something that was pointed out to me when I was working at Digital Equipment. They were kind of a state-of-the-art company, a lot of feel-good things. And we had to go through and sit down and our assertions and stuff like that. Anyhow, we had one exercise where we all had to sit around the table. And we were talking about body language. And something was revealed to me that I had no idea about. And it was from my peers. And they said, Art, whenever you don't like an idea, you push yourself away from the table. I never realized that. So the body language really is important. Does the individual need to be cognizant of that?
Absolutely. And I think that's a perfect example of how we can do things and not even be fully conscious or aware that we're sending this message to the people around us. And so we do need to think about that. And and think about how people are going to receive how we're holding ourselves.
How about the children that we serve? What's their communication skills like? Oh, it's a little different?
It definitely can be. They are going to use their words. Absolutely. But kids, in a previous show, we talked about play therapy and how, their play is a form of their communication. The toys are their words. And so, we can learn a lot from engaging in play with a child, and they're going to tell us stuff in a different way through that. That's, especially the young ones. The other ones that get a little bit older, it is about staying curious in your conversation with them. And they might have a body language thing going on, and you're like, what's that all about? And it's important to ask them questions. I noticed that you're doing this, kind of a thing. And a lot of times they'll be able to give you some information. Well, yeah, my arms are crossed because I am kind of mad at you right now. I am getting frustrated, even if they haven't communicated it in any other way. And I think as adults, we have a real opportunity to look at that and go, what's going on here? And then we can help facilitate that communication.
I think a lot of times, teenagers think adults have no clue, we don't understand, and they'll say, you just don't get it. Or never mind, it's too complicated. And just giving them that moment to say, well, help me understand, and not come across as I am an adult and you are just a kid and I know better. Just really opening up that openness to have a conversation will help me understand what you're thinking.
The communication skills are so important to social skills. So you could see where a lack of a good communication skill can really affect you socially going forward. I know we have people that, that have a problem socially talking, and there's some anxiety there when it comes out. What can we do to help those folks?
So I think it's about helping them, think about what is the kind of the cause of the anxiety or what's going on for them. For some people, I think they worry, well, what if I don't sound intelligent, or I say the wrong word, or whatever, right? Something like that. And it's about, they might work with themselves, right? And say, I've been in this situation before. It has been okay. I can do this. They can get feedback from others. Well, I've seen you be able to communicate effectively, so I know that you can. You did then. I know you will now. That's, a good way to start working on some of that.
Brenda?
I think it's also recognizing just because you're not outgoing or an extrovert, it's okay to be an introvert.
Mhm.
I am an introvert through and through. And you put me in a big social situation gathering, and I'm going to be the one sitting just at the table or on the wallflower until someone approaches me. And I'm okay with that. I'm not anxious, but I'm not going to be the one going up to new people and introducing myself. That's just not who I am.
So how about giving a speech in front of 250 people? What do you think?
Or go on the radio every Saturday.
Well, see, there's the growth part. You're on radio, and you're publicly communicating with people, and that's a big step. I think a large part of the communication is sharing. We want to share something with you, and usually it's share something good, but it's okay to share things bad. And I think we need to share more of the bad things to find some help, relief, some comfort from a friend, communication wise.
Yeah, I think, one thing I think that's so important. I think we need to know your audience as well, right? So who are you communicating these things to? Because you're going to get different reactions from different people when you're talking about things that maybe are more difficult. And so seeking out the friend that's going to be supportive, maybe not feed into whatever you got going on too, and keep you heading down a path that might not be so great. Or, it's sort of like I'm going to go tell the person at the grocery store about my problem. That might not always be the best person to communicate that with too. So I think there's a lot that goes into this in thinking about who am I going to communicate with? When am I going to communicate it to them? And how am I going to communicate it? But if you really take some time to kind of think about that and are thoughtful about it, you're going to get all of that right? And it's going to be a good interaction for you.
I think some of our best communicators are bartenders and hairstylists. They just have the gift of gab and the good listening skills. It's really good to sit down with them. So I think when you look at that, some professions require the ability to talk. And Christy, you mentioned it earlier, you're not born with that skill. Some people may be personality-wise a little open to more challenges and feeling more comfortable with that, but it's something you have to learn and communicate correctly. You can communicate in the wrong way. So this has been really a great topic this morning, and I want to thank the both of you for your help in sharing your expertise. I'm going to, as we do every week, we try to close off our show with a little humor. Humor's good for your mental health. And this week, joke is, yesterday I saw a guy spill all his Scrabble words on the road. I asked him, what's the word on the street? Okay, Weekly reader. Hey, listen, we thank you. We're coming up towards the end of our show. Thank Brenda, Christy for your help, and also thanks to our listening audience for joining us this morning. I want to give a shout out to Jan Dewar and also Scott Tucker, great guy, the computer doctor. If you have any questions or comments or would like to suggest a topic or request a shout out, please call Family Services at 293-4900. All episodes are archived on the Family Services webpage and under the Programming tab on the KSCJ website. We'll be back next Saturday morning at 7 a.m. right here on KSCJ 1360 AM 94.9 FM. Our topic next week will be living with a person with mental health issues. So we hope you'll be with us. Have a great week.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Happy trails.